Hello beer tubers and welcome to another beer review with me, Peter, the master of hoppets. Today doing an Easter special or an Easter seasonal. I've really kept off Easter seasonal beers for a while now, but it's a thing in Denmark. There is a big market for it, there is a market for it. The problem is the time frame is quite narrow. It's like for Christmas, it's not a problem because for the entire month of December, people will drink Christmas beers, and even before December, Christmas is such a big deal. But with Easter, it's thing is, like, Easter moves. It's not the same dates every year, and then usually people will only really go ham on the Easter beers during like the short break, Easter break or Easter vacation over Easter. That's the only time really you see a lot of people going nuts about it or wanting to drink it, and you don't have the same tradition of doing all these Christmas events and all this, like loads of Easter things. It's Easter is still one of the big holidays in Denmark, but it's not as big as Christmas. So I think we've definitely seen also a decline in numbers of brewers producing Easter-themed beers. More so, they've been producing spring beers because it's easier to sell a beer for spring than just like a week of Easter. So that's probably also one of the reasons why you don't see too many. But I'm doing two different Easter beers this year. And one is really big and macro, and the other one is, and it's also specifically Danish, and the other one is made specifically for the Danish market. But this one is going to be a revisit as well. I haven't had this beer in a long time. We're checking out the pretty much first Danish Easter beer. We're checking out Tuborg Påskebryg, also known as Kylle. So this is historically the very first Easter beer. Tuborg, or Carlsberg, who owns Tuborg, the brand, claims that this beer was brewed for the first time in 1906. That makes this beer more than 100 years old, which is pretty impressive. So Tuborg and Carlsberg has a lot of old historic beer recipes in their repertoire. Like one of the ones that they brought back in a, I guess, slightly modified modern version was the 1786. It's like a Munich Dunkel, pretty much. Trying to do a real Munich Dunkel that's not like a classic. And that beer is actually not half bad. And it's brewed with all malts, which is really nice. No extracts and whatnot. And that's still a part of their repertoire. This is a seasonal release they do every year, but this one's really changed over the years. There's been years where it's only been on keg. There's been years where it's been a pale beer. There's years when it's been a dark beer, until they've kind of settled, I think, around the 80s on what it was. And I think it also briefly in the 90s was called just Kylle, which was the slang for it. They tried to, I think it was also in the 80s that they launched the Tuborg Christmas beer, the Tuborg Julebryg, which is a big phenomenon, much bigger than the Easter beer, although the Easter beer came first. But that one has so much marketing behind it, great advertising and advertising campaigns and commercials and stuff like that. And like all these events around bars where it's like, oh, it's the Christmas season. So now like there's like people dressed up in like garb or costumes that look similar to the artwork on the label and all that. Like the marketing on that is crazy, and that's just a study in really great pure marketing. But they've tried to do a similar thing with the Påskebryg, the Kylle, where they try to do something. They call this day when the Christmas beer is released, they call that J Day. They've tried to do P Day for this one as well, where they've had like bars that had like stuffed chickens and all stuff like that. But it's not been as big of a hit, it seems. It's not like people go nuts for this event compared to the Tuborg Julebryg. The Tuborg Julebryg is such a big marketing success that is pretty much a part of Danish Christmas culture. It's transcended just beer drinking and moved into Danish culture. Like if you're a Dane and you haven't been to a Tuborg like event release when they've done that, I mean, that's crazy. And everyone knows about it and goes out and has fun and whatnot. So it's just like, it's a big part, and a lot of people are excited about that time when that's released. But this beer is a 5.4% strong Pilsner, they say on the label. It's brewed with water, barley malts, barley, and hops. So, okay, it says barley twice. So maybe they're using some extract these days. One of the things that's interesting is Carlsberg has always mainly used the real ingredients. But in recent years, you can see on a lot of labels, especially if the beers are not brewed in Denmark, they use other ingredients. But yeah, basically what this is inspired by, it's inspired by the tradition of brewing Märzen in Germany. So brewed in the colder months and lagered until spring and served in the spring. And that's basically what they've tried to do a macro version on. So it's like a stronger lager beer that can be both hoppy and malty. Because this is a macro beer, it's going to be malty. So without further ado and all this ramblings along the way, let's say Happy Easter and smell some beer. So even using proper glassware, because as Joe says, beer tastes better from proper glassware. It's slightly golden amber. It has some yellow hues to it. Actually, it's more like a golden yellow than anything. It looks darker on camera, but it's a fairly pale colored beer for it trying to be a Märzen. Usually the classic Märzen is a little bit darker, but then you got the fest beer that's really pale, which is like an offshoot kind of. It's almost a bit more like a Helles, but Märzen beer are usually darker, and I'm sure there's also examples like this. Let's check out the aroma. Loads of CO2, but this also is a glass with laser edgings on the bottom. But let's check out the aroma. I haven't had this beer in years. Okay, surprisingly, there's definitely like a Munich malt type quality to it, like a richer maltiness. This is really fun to smell when you're like so in tune with lager as I am these days. It's also really clean, but it's got that like macro clinically clean aroma to it. Like, I don't know how they do that, if it's because of like some kind of crazy filtration system or something, because I know these beers are lagered like usually the minimum amount of time before they're pushed on in the system. But it has definitely some Munich malt character to it, like a rustic Brittiness. Next to no hops, but what's there slightly peppery. It smells almost like Perle or something like that. But it actually smells better than I thought. It smells better than I thought and remember. And it doesn't have that cloying kind of sweet nuance that you get from the Christmas beer. The Christmas beer is sweeter, and then it also has, is it licorice or something like that? It smells okay for a macro beer, actually. It does. But it's rather like, it's nowhere near like, think like Knoblauch Märzen or something that I had in Franken. But let's try it. Cheers. Happy Easter, guys. And then the macroness of it all really presents itself. That is so dull. Like when you get really great lager that's well aged and or lagered, it feels so alive and vibrant. This feels pretty fucking dead. It feels pasteurized to shit and mass filtered or heavily filtered. And it's not like nearly as vibrant at all. Like I would definitely drink this. And it's definitely like if you serve this especially I think like American beer drinkers and whatnot, they would be like, wow, that's, especially if they're into macro beers, they'd be like, wow, that's a really flavorsome lager. But it's not compared to what it's inspired by and what it's trying to do. It's trying to be a Märzen, but like this is nowhere near the best Märzens you can get. But I also don't hate it. Like, I'd be happy to drink a can of this, and I'd be happy to drink another can afterwards. It would never be a first choice for me to drink this. But it's not like the worst beer you can get. I think so. In general, I think at least a lot of the Danish brewed Carlsberg products, some of them are quite all right. At least some of the lagers are quite all right. They do have these offshoots, like the Grimbergen, I think I'd rather drink this than Grimbergen. And I'd rather drink this than the wheat beer, the 17, the Kronenbourg Blanc. Those are terrible beers filled with flavorings and all kinds of stuff. Like, this is definitely better. And this is a bit more, showcasing Carlsberg's classic lager brewing heritage fairly decently. But it still just also feels like a very soulless beer because it's so clinically clean and it doesn't have the rich layers and vibrancy and like that feeling of the beer being alive that's not there. It's like it feels like quite dead. And it's weird to talk about this in flavor descriptions, but when you try really well-made lager beers, really fresh from some fantastic producers of lagers, that eye-opening experience of drinking really fresh, awesome lager, when you have that for the first time and you're getting into lagers and different types of lager, that's so unique. And then you're like, okay, I get why some people really fucking love lagers. But then you have this, and then it's like, I get why people don't understand lagers, because this feels so dead compared to the alive beers. Like when you go to Knoblauch and drink their Märzen on tap there at the brewery, or just buy some bottles to take home. Like, it's much more of a vibrant and alive beer, and so many more layers and complexities than this. It's definitely more of a dud. What I was quite surprised by, though, was the aroma indicated it had this richer malt character, this Munich malt thing. And there's a little bit of it on the flavor, but not a lot. But it's okay. It's like slightly toffee, Munich malty, bready-ish, with a peppery, grassy note on the end. But very, ultra clean, very macro feeling. And a slight bitterness on the end, but it's really light. It's almost like you did a Märzen as a European pale lager or something like that. Like, if you also drink like Carlsberg and Tuborg and all these supposedly pilsners, they're also a whole lot less hoppy and bitter than real pilsners from like the Czech Republic or Germany. Like, if you have real, like even from big breweries in Germany, pilsners, they will be much more hoppy. And I think it's a little bit also the Danish style and what it's morphed into here. But it's okay. I would drink this. And I would drink it again, but I would not buy this. I only bought this to do a review and just to try and revisit it. But like, I wouldn't buy it myself. But if I'm at a Christmas party or Easter party or something like that, Easter gathering with family, and this is what on the table, and I want a beer, I wouldn't mind drinking a can or a bottle. But it's also just like, when you know what's around, this just doesn't cut it. So, but I'm not gonna flunk it. I really gave it. I think I gave it like a 30. I was like, I tore this beer a new one. But I will say it has some merit, because there is some resemblance of a Märzen in this beer. It has that Munich kind of maltiness and a little bit of richness for what it is. But again, it still also just feels like a macro beer. So maybe a 65 or something like that. I'll definitely pass it. It's not the worst beer I've ever had. But it's also like a beer that's really, really boring. It's like really kind of like a diluted Märzen. Like, if you took a Märzen, you poured in water, or if you poured in Tuborg, really, I guess. So it's just diluted and much more devoid of flavor. Is it worth a shot? If you want to. I would not recommend seeking this out otherwise. But if you guys had a chance to try it, Tuborg Påskebryg, also known as Kühle Kühle, let me know what you thought of it. And as always, remember to comment, subscribe, check out the Facebook fan page, Twitter, and Instagram. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Ring the bell for future notifications about videos, and I'm going to say cheers. And see you guys in another beer review.